So we'll be looking into few of the S3 hands-on, and we'll be spending most of this, remaining 29 minutes on the console. But before that, I want to, so that you can have the resources handy. These are the workshops that we will look into today, and depending upon time, we'll see how much we can do it hands-on and how much you will be doing on your own in your own time. So for the first one that we have, uh, Ashish talked about S3 and how great S3 is, and you store a lot of data, right? But how about if you want to run some queries on that data? Would you be actually moving that data? Let's say if the data is in a relational format, would you be moving the data into relational database? Or is there a way you can query that data using simple SQL on S3 itself? So the first workshop would be based on that, which is Amazon S3 Select. We'll be able to query data without using servers or database. The second thing that we'll be looking is about S3 Object Lambda. It's about, let's say you have a specific data that is stored in S3 and you want to have different views of that data. Then will you be creating different copies of it? Or you can use a feature so that every user can have different kind of view, and we'll dive deep into that. And then finally, we would be having a storage immersion day, and that has labs for multiple things. Again, word of caution is that while you're doing these hands-on in your own account, be aware of the costs that it can incur. Cool. So let's get into the workshops bits. So we'll start with the first one, which I said is Amazon S3 Select, querying data without servers or databases. The deck would be shared. It has the links, but if anyone wants to do it right now, let me paste this link on the chat window right away, so that in case if you want to follow along. Just one sec. Yeah, here it is. Now let's understand first what S3 Select is. As the name suggests, S3 Select, if I open this link, and I'll open another link also because it is taking a lot of time. So it's better that I open 2 links at a time, and hopefully they will load in the background. Yeah. So S3 object content. So what exactly S3 does is that it allows
Prasad,
you
can I say something?
to use simple statement.
Prasad, can you zoom it in a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah,
Is
that's
it better
better.
now?
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So it allows you to actually use simple SQL statements. It can query objects in the following formats. So if you have like files that are in CSV format or JSON or Parquet format, you should be able to use S3 to actually run queries on top of it. Use S3 select feature, and you should be able to do that, right? Documentation has few more details. What exactly you can do? Select from where limit. Anyone who is aware of SQL would be knowing that these are the simple SQL statements. So you'll be able to run queries like select star from the from clauses, the where clauses and stuff, right? So let's do a quick lab on that. So go through the description in your own time, but let's start. So here it's a phone book search. It has a simple phone book, and let me in fact show what the phone book entails. It's a simple CSV file, uh, sample data.csv. It's a CSV file like this. Again, I'll zoom in a bit. Hold on. that has a name, number, city, and occupation. And this is what is stored in S3, right? So how would you query it? The workshop is about that. So to first set up the workshop, it has three ways to do it. You can do is a quick start, and we'll start with this, and then you can even build from the source the Python and the TypeScript if you want to change anything in the Lambda files. In case if you want to add your own query or something, you can do that. But let's start with the quick start one. Three steps in each of them: the setup, the usage, the cleanup, and we'll look into it. First, the setup. They have a CloudFormation template through which you will be able to create it. First of all, it says create a S3 bucket. Ashish did so, show how to create a S3 bucket, and then upload the sample data file. So let's go to S3 and let me again. Hopefully this should be good enough. I did already create a bucket with phone book demo. And if you see in this, I already uploaded the sample data, and it is saying to upload the sample data. Okay, let me increase make it 200% by default, I think. Yeah, hopefully this should be fine. Ashish, is the font size okay now? Cool. Yeah, I think so. Okay, cool. Now, yeah, it's asked us to create and upload these two samples, and I already done those. This is the sample data, and this is the Lambda code. And we'll look into here how you can build them depending upon the time that we have. And then go to AWS console, select CloudFormation, and upload the stack. So I already created that, but I'll show you the steps. Now, again, it's always for productivity perspective, always better to have multiple tabs rather than updating the same tab again. So generally, what I do is that CloudFormation, right click, open new tab. It creates. And let me again increase 200. Now this is the stack that got created. Now let's understand what all it will create. Now it should create all the uh, you know resources that are stored in this architecture diagram. That is the API gateway, the Lambda, right? So let's look into that. So if you look into, let's the output, it gives me an endpoint, right? And we'll look into how to use that, right? Hold on, let me open this. It's too much zoomed. Let me make it 175. Hopefully that will be fine. Yeah. Then let's look into the resources it has created. It has created an API gateway. It has created few web ACLs, the S3 select, and a demo Lambda function. So let's look into those things. Let's go to first of all, before doing that, we'll have to, because this is the endpoint that we'll be using. So let us copy it as I've copied it onto a notepad that I have here. Cool. And now I'll go to, I can go to the Lambda from here itself. I'll go to the resources. And this is the Lambda function. So I'll go here, go to the Lambda function. And see, I have the API gateway. So all of these are created. How all of them are created? It's a cloud formation template. Let me hold on. How many of you know cloud formation or know how to use cloud formation? If is this is a simple cloud formation, like syntax. If you're not aware of cloud formation, so see, doing through AWS console, management console is something that we should be knowing, but it is always important to know to how to do it programmatically, whether it is CLIs or mostly, like automating the code. So either it is Terraform or CloudFormation or CDK or Pulumi, but you should be knowing at least one of the infrastructure as code, right? So for that, let me, for anyone, okay, let's go back to this. And anyone who has not used CloudFormation or is not aware of CloudFormation, yes, we have this AWS workshop that will go through the basics of exactly what the cloud formation is and gives you a good hands-on experience. So I'll suggest everyone to go through this. It is good to know how to navigate the AWS management console, but in real production life, probably you will not be even having access to the AWS console. If you're a developer, you'll be mostly navigating it through the infrastructure as code and deployment tools and the pipelines. So again, let me again zoom it a bit. And this goes through your basics, intermediate, advanced, all of it. So it will teach from the very beginning to the end. So let me put this workshop link onto the chat. Okay. Working with Terraform, great. And then do you have to learn all the that language or okay, it's not a language. It's a JSON or like a YAML templates that you can, it's not like a Python or TypeScript. We'll talk about that also when you can like do CDK. But it's a simple JSON or YAML scripts, and there is a set format, right? And it's quite intuitive. And then if you're using editors like let's say VS Code, you will be having IntelliSense too, right? No, no one will be able to ever learn that JSON. No one will be able to learn that. So it's all very logical. It's all about understanding it rather than trying to learn it. And once you understand it, it will be really easy. Okay, going back to the topic. Let me go here. This is what the CloudFormation template is, which talks about the function that it gets created, the code URI, the environment, the API gateway it gets created. All of this is defined here as a code. And when you run this, all those resources are automatically provisioned, right? So, and when it's provisioned, if you see here, this is your Lambda function that is being the source of that is API gateway. So when you call a URL, API gateway is the front end. It gets called. It's supposed to. I'm trying to click on it. Then API gateway calls the Lambda function. The Lambda function actually has the logic to run the query through using the S3 select, go into the S3 bucket, retrieve the data, and pass it back. So that request, it goes to the Lambda function that we have looked. We'll look into the code of that in a moment. It goes through the response and gives us a response. So to use it, if you go, so the setup is done. So if you look at the usage part here, it says that in the output tab, we do have the link, right? And we copied that using Postman or curl. Again, if you're not aware of these terms, then these are the ways how you can test a API. You can issue a command and the URL. So this is the URL, a simple URL. What this URL is, it's giving you the parameters and sending a post method to this particular URL. So let's try and run this. So what I'll do is I'll open my, again, let me see how I can increase the font. Text. Okay, cool. Now if I go to the notepad, so this is what our URL is, and that was the curl statement. So I'm going to use this URL in the curl statement. So I'm going to run this command. So the URL that we have created, it is going to post with these parameters, and it should be able to get the data. So it says the occupation is specialist solutions architect, phone number, and blah blah blah. So it was able to get the all the data for the name Onyx. So if we go into our CSV file that we had, right, result for Onyx through a select query. Now, how the select query looks like, let's look into that. Now, so this was, and once you do that, do cleanup. And if you would like to change the query something, build from here. And this is where CDK comes into picture. CDK again is infrastructure, actually is code. So if I, as we have CloudFormation, similarly, we have something called CDK where you can write your infrastructure in a known programming language, like your TypeScript or Python or C Sharp. So instead of using JSON or YAML, anyone who's coming from developer background, it will be useful for them. Again, nothing to learn, mainly to understand. Cool. So going back here, so here, if you go to build from source, like in Python, right? It'll, for the setup part, it'll ask you to set up in your account, and then there will be CDK that is required, right? And then you can use to the CDK. Now, what I'm going to show you is the code of that Lambda function now. Let's look into the code of that Lambda function. This is in TypeScript, but the downloadable has that code even in Python. So you can, depending upon which language you're comfortable with. So it, again, everything is defined here in, instead of CloudFormation, it is defined here in CDK. Again, API gateway. If you see, it's quite logical in a way, the way it is being structured. Right? It has a input serialization and the output serialization. Expression type is SQL and the sample data. What I want to and in the S3 client, it is going to select object context. So it is the method. We are using the select object with the params, and how to create those params is here. Params is select object command input. The expression here is query builder. Now this is important. The query builder that is being used. If you go here, query builder, and this is where the query is. Select star from S3 object, where name like, that's what we searched, the name like Onyx. If the key is occupation, you can even search by key because it's the query that has been built out. You can either search by name or occupation or city, and you'll be able to get the entire data. And there is an AND operation here. Now, if you're just getting started with AWS, this all might seem a bit overwhelming. So do not get overwhelmed. All I'm trying to say is that that is why we have three different levels. Quick start is how you can do without even looking into the code and just understanding from the high level perspective, using it yourself, and then dive deep into the cloud formation. So always try and use the cloud formation as much as possible. But if you are coming from a developer background and you are switching to AWS, you might want to look into here TypeScript and Python. So depending upon it, like everyone has their own mileage, right? So depending upon that, look into which one do you like to use. Okay, 8 minutes left. I think we should move on to the next one. Let me look into if there are any questions. Hold on. Thank you, Parna, for oh wow. Thank you, Parna, for taking care of the questions and sharing the resources. Is a guide I've never done. Yeah, don't be intimidated. It's all about a bit of practice. Once you and you will see that things are very easy. Once you get started, you will feel that things are very logical and things are very easy. How much coding do we need to know for solutions architect? It's always like a question, and if you ask me, I generally say no, it's not required at all. Depending upon what it's a good to have, not must to have. Do you have auto complete while writing ISC? Yes, if you use Visual VS Code, you would be having. There are autocomplete functionalities or intelligence functionalities, I would say. How hard is to get associate developer certificate without SAA first? Okay, it's like I believe between the three. And again, it comes from my personal opinion based on my background. I come from a developer background. Developer associate cert is the easiest one. But anyways, Ashish is from training certification team. I think he will be able to, put more color. But I believe from the difficulty wise, developer associate is the easiest, and sysops associate is the most difficult, and SA associate sits in between. But that is because I come from developer background. Probably if someone comes from administration background, they might find it in a different order. Okay, cool. Now, looking into time, let's move on to the next one. For the next one, let me go and open the. Oh yes, in fact, I wanted to spend more time on S3 Object Lambda instead of this one. So S3 Select is great in case if you want to query something, right? In a SQL format. But S3 Object Lambda is, you know, is a great feature. And I'll go to the documentation first to explain it a bit. So if it is Lambda, we understand that there can be some code that has been added to the Lambda. So you can add your own code to S3 get, the functionalities that we have, head, which returns the metadata, and list request to modify and process the data as it is returned to the application. So let's say if you have one set of data and you want to have multiple kinds of views, and I'll tell one good example of that, why it will be required. Then there are either ways to make a copies of it and each application using the individual copy, or you can try and add the transformation capabilities when you're accessing the data in a serverless fashion. And that's what S3 Object Lambda is. So here it is. If you look into this diagram, it says you can create a Lambda function and you can configure the S3 Object Lambda access point, and we'll be doing a lab of that. Then whenever you will invoke that Lambda through the access point for S3 get head and list, it is going to transform the data and give to the application accordingly. Right? Now, one use case of why it will be required. Let's say you have information that has PII data, that is personally identifiable information, right? Now, a lot of people might be needing access to the data, but based on the user, the role of the user, they might be able to see their credit card numbers, they might be able to see their phone numbers, they might not be able to do. Based on the requirements, the data should be masked. So either we mask the data and keep a separate copy of that data, or we keep the original copy and ensure that based on the roles who is accessing, they get only the relevant data of that. So the Lambda function is invoked. Customer proprietary code is invoked to retrieve the data from S3 and scramble sensitive data out of the object from the S3, and then that is delivered. Now, this is what the workshop will be about. S3 Object Lambda redaction workshop. Okay. Now, you might be thinking that to implement this functionality in a Lambda, right? That I have a S3 bucket, let's say, and if I go back to the same example, let's say I have this. And this, let's say, has more information like credit card numbers, their address and everything, their social security numbers, their Aadhaar numbers and everything. And based on who is accessing, you want to mask some of the data. Then you'll have to write the code, right? Based on who is accessing, what data should be accessible in the Lambda. But now we do have a way to do that. So I'm not sure if you have heard of Amazon Comprehend. So Amazon Comprehend is an LP tool which can help you do that. But the beauty is that we already have a Lambda that can be used as it is in the serverless application repository. Right? Now, serverless application repository, again, something for later date, we will dive deep in, is it has already the pre-assembled, like modules that you can use directly. So if I go back here into the console, and if I go to serverless application repository, so if I go to the available applications, and which are publicly available for everyone. So there are these many which you can automatically use as it is. So it has a lot of functionality already for you. So if I want to use the one to redact sensitive information, already have comprehend PII, redaction, S3 object lambda. So I can simply deploy this. With some parameters that it has. So you don't need to create those things because a lot of functionality can create your. Cool. I'll let it load. I know we are on time, so I'll take another couple of minutes to wrap this up. So here are the few of the application settings which you can configure, and you can read more about, how to use these, and then deploy. It is going to automatically deploy. So, and I already have it deployed in my Lambda. If I go to the Lambda functions, I have one of the comprehend one deployed. And through this, I will be able to actually get different information from different roles. So if you look into this Object Lambda workshop, it deploys separately for admin user and separately for billing user and customer service. So admin user should be able to see all of them, Billing user should be able to see their probably credit card details, something like that, and customer service should not be able to see those details. So based on the rules or users a role that you have, you will be providing different kinds of settings for the same Lambda function, and accordingly you will be setting up the Lambda access points, so that when you will be testing the solution based on the role that you have assumed, you will be seeing that corresponding data. So try this out, and it will be a good way to see how it all works. And the final one that I have for you folks is AWS Storage Immersion Day. Now, this is something that we as solutions architects use to train our customers and partners, anyone who is getting started. We do a full day immersion day for them, in which we go through all of these modules for them. And as you'll see, it will just not include S3, it also includes EFS, also includes data about the data migration, about how we can use the services like data sync or file gateway, all those kinds of stuff, and the backup, how can you do backups, right? So obviously, depending upon how much dive deep you want to do and what your area of expertise is, you can go ahead and do the pick and choose the labs that you would like to do. All of them can be done separately. You don't do, it's not like it's a pick and choose. You can, it's like a Lego blocks that you can pick and choose. But again, be conscious of the cost that it might incur. So always run this, whatever you will create, delete the cloud formation template. So it's another good way why you should be using ISE, is that because if you create manually on your AWS management console, you might forget, and then you will keep looking into the cross-region resources. If you create through cloud formation template, you can always delete cloud formation template, and that's pretty much, you have a clean account. That's all from me for today. So, yep, thank you all, and see you all next week.
Thank you, Prasad. And let me add you also into the chat now. So, yeah, what Prasad has shared was some of the basic stuff which can be used. And don't feel overwhelmed if you are just starter. I would give you some more resources so that you can practice on it. Now, let me share something here before we call it end. This is called free labs available onto your. Let me check 1 minute. This is available on Quick Labs. Sometime I forgot things. So you could go to Quick Labs, and through Quick Labs, you should be able to get a free lab deployed for you, and you can practice there. You have to search a little bit for that free lab because it is not by default displayed. Let me quickly share that link here onto the BESA web page. So on BESA web page, you will find from previous session that there is a Quick Labs link available, and we will be putting that into the resources section also. So if I'm here on the Quick Labs, and let me put this URL into the chat, what you could do here, you could search for the catalog. You would need an account, but the account is free. At least all the free resources you can use. And let's say now I am looking for Amazon S3. So I'm searching for activities related to Amazon S3, which is available for me, right? So give it few seconds and it should be delivering some details to me. And once I have that activities, I should be able to practice on that. Check for free, and that free would be giving you all the data related to performing all the labs and performing operations. It's not working as of now, but I will share the link into the BESA page section. So you should have that link available. Let me check quickly. I'm going to BESA program page, and you, how do you get resource folder? That's what I'm showing you here right now. So if you go to BESA website, there is a additional resources section on the left side, this one, and here we have put together resources based on every sessions we have delivered so far. So it is batch 3, the last session we had, and I would say go for batch 1 because that is where we covered the most of the basic stuff, right? So here if I'm going, I can go to week 2, and in week 2 I would find the details of Amazon S3. We discussed it there. So here is my PDF file of that session, reinvent videos which are useful to watch, some general information, and see this practice. Introduction to Amazon Simple Storage Service. This is a quick lab. You would need an account. This account can be created for free. And now once I am here, I should be searching for it. The link get dynamically generated. So I can't share a link, but I'm showing you the way. Come here and search for storage related stuff, and you would be finding lots of things on storage here. So see this storage and CDN, digital media, sysadmin for AWS, and similarly I can search for just Amazon storage service or Amazon S3. And hopefully I should be seeing some of the quest I can go to. So 23 result. Now in that, if you see, this one says 8 credit. So this would require you some money, but similarly you will find something which will be free. Right, see this introduction to simple storage service. So this is a place where you can go, start a lab, follow some instruction, upload an object to S3, make an object public. So all instructions are given. They will give you all the details you need, and you should be able to practice around. Shouldn't be a problem at all. So amazon.quicklabs.com, search for the specific service, sorry, specific topic, and you should get free labs. You just need an account, nothing else is required to practice on this method. So that should be much easier for you to all follow along, right? So resources section is your go-to place. We have lots of information, and if you enjoy the session, please put detail on LinkedIn, share on LinkedIn, let your friends know, spread the word about this so that more people can get benefited out of it. The Twitch channel would be live for 1 week, means the session is available to replay in 1 week, and within a week we will upload it onto YouTube like we did for the last session. So it should be available to you there also. All right. Any final questions, anyone? Any other thoughts? Anything which you want to share, talk about? There was a question on SAA that will you be sharing some detail about solution architect certification? So we are working on that. Let me show the question here. So question are, do you ever have QA webinar for solution architect day-to-day work? So yes, we will be talking about that. And Fasad and Jamila and then James, Michelle, they are all a solution architect. So they would be sharing more detail on their day-to-day job. So we will talk about that also. All right. Any last minute questions, anyone? Anything which is not clear, please let us know, and we would be happy to add all this information into the channel, and you should have no problem at all in accessing that. All right. So thank you, and thank Abhijit for answering the question in the chat, and feel free to reach out to us. This is the link for the resources page on the screen. You can see it, and we hope to you in the next session. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.